The water always came back. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the sound, not the shaking, not the moment the building gave way. The water. A dark line under the concrete. A stain that dried, returned, and spread again. I had seen leaks before. Every building near the ocean has its own small arguments with water. Salt in the air, rain from sudden storms, pipes that sweat, garage floors that never feel completely dry. So the first time I saw it, I did what maintenance workers do. I marked it. I mopped it. I told myself I would check it again tomorrow. Tomorrow became a week. A week became another mark on the wall. The stain came back, darker, lower, wider, and each time it returned, I felt something in the building speaking too quietly for anyone upstairs to hear. I worked below the lobby, below the polished floors, below the balconies facing the sea. Most people knew the building from the outside. White walls, glass railings, ocean air, morning light on windows. They saw Champlain Towers South as a place to live, to retire, to visit family, to wake up to the sound of waves. I knew it from underneath. The garage, the columns, the ceiling above the parked cars, the pipes running like veins through concrete, the smell of damp air after rain, the small flakes of concrete that fell where they should not fall. I knew the building by the places no one took pictures of. That is where buildings tell the truth. Not in the lobby, not in the brochures, not in the ocean view. Underneath, where water waits. Where cracks do not need permission to grow. Every morning, I made my rounds. Lights, doors, pumps, drains, leaks, garage, pool deck, back stairs, storage rooms. A building has a routine if you listen long enough. The hum of fans, the click of relays, the soft rush of water through pipes, the dull closing of elevator doors. When something changes, you feel it before you can explain it. A new drip, a new smell, a new echo under your shoes. The garage had always been damp in places. That was not new. What changed was the way the dampness stopped looking like weather. It began to look like a map. Lines of water leading from one place to another. Cracks darkened by moisture. Rust-colored stains under the ceiling. Small white trails where water had dried and left minerals behind. Concrete edges that looked tired. I took photographs with my phone. Not because I understood everything, because I did not. I wanted proof for later. Maintenance is full of later. Later, someone will ask when it started. Later, someone will say they never saw it. Later, someone will need a date, a picture, a note, a time. So I kept them. A crack near the parking space, a stain under the pool deck, a patch of concrete that had flaked away enough to show what should have stayed hidden. I sent them up the chain. That was how things worked. A worker sees, a worker reports, a worker waits. The decisions live somewhere else. I did not sit in board meetings. I did not approve repairs. I did not read every engineering page line by line. But one day, I saw the report. Not all of it, enough. It had the kind of language that makes fear sound professional. Concrete deterioration, failed waterproofing, major structural damage, necessary repairs. Words like that do not shout. They sit quietly on paper and wait for someone with authority to feel their weight. I remember touching the edge of the page. The paper was clean. The garage was not. That bothered me. A warning looks different when it is printed. On paper, it becomes organized, measured, contained. In the garage, it smelled like damp concrete and old salt. I read the same line twice, then a third time. Major structural damage. I did not know exactly how much weight those words carried, but I knew they were not ordinary words. You do not write major unless something has already gone too far. For a few days after that, I walked differently below the building. I looked up more. I listened. Every drip felt louder. Every crack looked longer. Every rust stain seemed to have moved since the day before. That is the cruel thing about noticing. Before you notice, the world is normal. After you notice, nothing is silent. Residents still came and went. A man carried groceries from his car. A woman talked on the phone near the elevator. Someone complained about the pool area being closed too long. Someone else asked when the repairs would finally happen. I answered what I could. Soon. They are working on it. There are plans. That was not a lie, but it was not the truth either. The truth was that the building had been waiting longer than any of us wanted to admit. Near the pool deck, the water was worse after heavy rain. It found paths. It moved through seams. It appeared below as dark stains and slow drops. I used buckets sometimes, towels, warning cones, plastic signs, small human things placed under a problem much larger than them. Once, I stood in the garage after a storm and watched water fall from the ceiling in several places at once. Not rushing, not dramatic, just steady. Drop, drop, drop. The sound made the whole garage feel patient, as if the building had learned to lose itself one drop at a time. I reported it again. Photos, location, date, description. I remember writing the words water intrusion and feeling ridiculous because the water was not intruding anymore. It lived there. Days passed, then weeks. The ocean kept moving outside like nothing in the world could be more natural. Inside, the building kept holding itself up. That is what makes people believe a warning can wait. The lights still turn on, the elevators still arrive, cars still park, children still sleep. Coffee still brews in kitchens above you. A building can look alive right up until the moment it is not. I did not think of collapse, not then. That word belonged to other places. Old buildings in old cities, earthquakes, war zones, structures abandoned for decades. Not here. Not this white tower beside the Atlantic. Not a place with mailboxes, beach towels, bicycles, parking decals, birthday cards, and residents who nodded to me in the morning. So I chose smaller fears. A repair delayed, a ceiling section failing, a pipe leak becoming worse, a car damaged by falling concrete, a resident angry about costs. Those were fears my mind could hold. The larger fear stayed outside the room. Then came the night before. I was not supposed to remember anything about it as special. That is how the last normal night works. It disguises itself. Lights in the hall, doors closing, the sea beyond the glass, a few cars still in the garage, the building making its usual tired sounds. I checked the lower level late. There was moisture near one of the places I had marked before. The stain looked darker. I crouched and ran my fingers near the edge, not through it. Cold. I looked up. The concrete above me seemed the same, and not the same. A thin line I had photographed before looked easier to see. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was my mind putting fear into the wall. I took another photo anyway. The flash made the concrete look pale. Too pale. I stood there a moment longer than I needed to. Then I put the phone back in my pocket. That was the last picture I took before the building changed. A little after 1 in the morning, the world became sound. Not one sound, many. A deep break, a tearing weight, a roar that did not belong inside a building. I felt the floor move under me before I understood it. The lights flickered. Something slammed somewhere below or above or everywhere at once. For a second, my mind reached for ordinary explanations. A transformer, a truck, a pipe burst, something in the garage. Then the sound grew too large for ordinary things. The building was not making a noise. It was becoming noise. I remember dust first, a breath of it, then a wall of it, white and gray. It entered the air like the air had been replaced. Alarms began, not together, one after another. A car alarm, a fire alarm, a sound from a broken panel, someone shouting in a hallway, then another voice, then many. I could not see far. The world had become close. A few feet of dust, a light blinking, the shape of a door, my own hands in front of me, strange and pale. I moved because standing still felt like surrender. I called out, no answer. Then someone answered, not words, just a sound, a human sound under dust and concrete and broken air. I will not describe what I saw. Some memories do not become clearer when spoken. Some memories should stay behind the eyes of the people who were there. But I remember objects. A shoe without its owner in the hallway. A set of keys on the floor. A child's inflatable toy covered in dust. A phone ringing somewhere no hand could reach. Those things stay because the mind can hold them. It cannot hold the whole building. Outside, people were running. Some barefoot, some wrapped in whatever they had found, some covered in dust so completely they looked older than they were. The air smelled of concrete, salt, wires, and fear. No one understood the shape of what had happened yet. We knew only absence. Where there had been walls, there was open night. Where there had been homes, there was a broken edge. Where there had been a tower, part of the sky had moved closer. A man kept saying a name over and over, not shouting, just repeating it, as if the name itself could guide someone back. Another resident stood facing the building with both hands on his head. He did not move. He looked like a man waiting for the world to correct itself. It did not. Sirens came. Lights came. Firefighters, police, rescue crews, radios, commands. The street filled with red and blue flashes. The ocean kept moving in the dark behind everything. That made me angry. I do not know why. Maybe because the sea had been there all along, pressing its salt into the air, touching everything slowly, patiently, without ever looking violent. Now it sounded peaceful. Too peaceful. I wanted it to stop. I wanted the whole world to stop. Instead, people worked. They climbed. They called. They listened. They searched through dust and unstable concrete with the kind of courage that does not look like a movie. It looks like bent backs, quiet signals, gloved hands, faces turned toward sounds no one else can hear. I gave what I knew. Garage areas, access points, stair locations, where water had been, where cracks had been, where I had seen damage. The words came out badly. I kept pointing. There, under the pool deck, near the columns, the places I had marked, the places I had photographed, the places I had learned by smell, by sound, by the feeling under my shoes. At some point, someone put a blanket around my shoulders. I did not remember being cold. I looked down and saw dust on my hands, in the lines of my palms, under my nails. I kept rubbing them together. The dust stayed. Morning arrived without kindness. The sun rose over a building that no longer knew its own shape. News cameras came, helicopters, officials, neighbors, families. Names began to move through the air. Missing, accounted for, still searching, still hoping. Numbers changed, lists changed, faces appeared on phones, on paper, on television. A disaster becomes public in stages. First the sound, then the dust, then the lights, then the questions, then the names. The names are when history stops being large. Every name makes it smaller. A unit number, a family, a photograph, a favorite shirt, a birthday, a last message, a dog waiting in a room that no longer exists. I thought about the report. I tried not to, but memory does not obey mercy. The words returned. Major structural damage, concrete deterioration, failed waterproofing, necessary repairs. On paper, they had seemed severe. Afterward, they felt unbearable. I do not say the report was the collapse. I do not say one crack explained everything. Buildings do not fail because of one sentence. They fail through systems, materials, water, design, time, money, decisions, delays, assumptions, 1,000 small permissions. But I know this, the building spoke before it fell. It spoke in stains, in cracks, in exposed concrete, in reports, in photographs, in repair estimates, in meetings, in the nervous jokes people make when they know something is wrong, but need to live there anyway. It spoke for years, and still, people slept above it. That is the part I cannot escape. The ordinary life above the warning. Dinner plates in sinks, closets half open, medicine by bedsides, shoes beside doors, photos on refrigerators, elevator buttons touched by tired hands, people trusting the floor because people must trust the floor. You cannot live every day wondering if the ceiling will hold. You cannot make coffee and imagine the column below you. You cannot kiss someone goodnight and calculate load paths in your mind. Buildings are promises. Most people spend their whole lives inside promises they did not build. Weeks later, I found one of my old photos still on my phone. A stain, a crack, a date. It looked small. That was what hurt. It looked too small to carry what came after. A dark line under concrete. A damp patch in bad light. A place I had walked past more times than I could count. Before, it had been maintenance. After, it became memory. I zoomed in until the picture blurred. There was nothing hidden in it, no clear warning written across the concrete, no voice saying, "Tonight," no clock, no mercy, just a mark that had been there. That is how some tragedies begin. Not with a scream, with something coming back after you thought it was gone. A leak, a stain, a crack, a line on a report, a repair delayed until later. Years from now, people will read the findings. They will study the columns, the slabs, the pool deck, the garage, the construction, the water, the damage, the sequence. They should. Truth matters. Engineering matters. Accountability matters. The dead deserve more than mystery. But I know what I will remember. Not the diagrams, not the news conferences, not the language clean enough to fit inside a report. I will remember the first stain returning under the concrete. I will remember the sound of water falling into a bucket in the garage. I will remember the old report lying flat on a desk, calm and terrible. I will remember the last photo on my phone. I will remember people trusting the building because trust is what ordinary life requires. And I will remember the night the warning stopped being a warning. The ocean was still moving outside. The lights were still on. The building was still standing. And underneath it all, the water had already come back.